Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In the previous video, I reviewed what I decided to put in the first one, and a few things were brought to my attention, and so I'm going to be covering those in a bit more detail here in this video of Welcome Home investigation method play, because let's face it, you kind of probably want to know how to play the game. Maybe if you're new to these kinds of things, you're curious about how to actually interact and enjoy the experience. If you're not just watching things as they come along and just experiencing it just as a form of entertainment, kind of like a movie where things are unveiled as you go along. Well, if you're going to use the investigation method and you want to know how to do that, then this video is for you. So here we go. Let's get started. So there's two ways, and I mentioned those in the last video. One is the front door method, and the one is the it house rat method. And yes, I am self-censoring here. The front door method. Let's talk about that. That's pretty short and simple. And some of the methods will overlap, and I'll mention those later on. I've got some notes here for myself to remind me which ones overlap, so I'll be able to tell you as we go along. So if you're a front door methoder, then keep paying attention, keep listening, because there will be some notes later on that will apply to how you wish to enjoy the game. Now, people who want to use the front door method, how do you know if that's the one you want to use? Let's say you want to play an investigator type role in the game, but you want a nice sort of steady pace that's not too exciting, but gives you plenty of anticipation. That's going to be this method here. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the most obvious source and start there with your investigation, which in this particular case is the Welcome Home website. It's where pretty much everybody goes. There's plenty of Easter eggs there, i.e. foreshadowings, foretellings of things to come, lots of fun things to find and look for, clues and hidden messages, and it's just amazing the amount of effort that the creators and authors have gone to. Just delicious. You'll find the warm-hearted spirit and a welcoming feel there, and that's kind of part of that Easter egg stuff. But a note to myself here, because I was about to do it, I don't want to ruin the game for you guys by telling you the psychological reasons for this, okay? Why it's so friendly in the foreground and all that. That's part of the learning experience that I believe this game can actually be. Because for me, I look at this and I think, wow, what an amazing opportunity to use this game as a way to learn how to protect yourself and your loved ones from suspicious behavior, and be able to know the warning signs and the red flags and things like that. It's just an excellent, safe way to do that. So when you get a game like this where you can look for those kinds of things in safety, it's a good opportunity to do so. Now, as I said before in my previous video, you should check for yourself the authenticity and the validity of Welcome Home being a game. I checked for myself, and I am satisfied with what I found, and I am comfortable with the idea that this is a game. But do not take my word for this, all right? Go and look for yourself to find that information. And before I go too much further, I just want to thank the creators and the authors for this opportunity of a learning experience. So if they're watching this, thanks guys. Ace effort, man. This is amazing stuff. Now, getting back to what I was saying with regards to the authenticity and looking for the licensing and the official who does what in the game, and its creation and its developers and all that. Look, South Park was right, okay? There are no stupid questions, because questions do not have the ability to hold an intelligent quotient. And so, therefore, because they don't have that rating, they are not sentient. They are not self-aware. They cannot be stupid or dumb. So there are no dumb questions. There are no stupid questions. What I will say is, I was asked a question that made me pause for a moment and go, why in God's name would they ask me that? Okay. If you don't know where to go to find the authenticity of licensing and creativity and developers and who is involved in what part of the game and where to find the game actually listed as actually, yes, being a game, and you don't know who to trust for that kind of information, I would stop right now. Go and speak to some local government organizations, specifically education organizations, about getting you some basic computer skills and training, and look into getting that first. Because if you don't know how to look up official licensing for things and authentication in this sense, and that being step one, then I highly advise not playing any of these games because they are very intense. There are certain levels of how to use the passwords and codes and things like that that are built into the game that even I felt uncomfortable with, and some of my devices and equipment are set with such securities that they would not allow me to open those things, which is fair enough. I did set them up to do that, and so I'm glad to see that those securities actually worked. But at the same time, even I felt uncomfortable with it, and I'm thinking, well, sure, I'm not the greatest with computers, but at the same time, when I was learning some of these things, I thought, wow, I'm so glad that I know as much as I do about all of this interactive material. So take a moment, think about that, and if you feel like you're not ready to move beyond that, that's what I recommend you do. Just go out and get that education first. All right, moving right along. We see here, I'm going to try to center this a bit better. Our next step is understanding the in-house wrap method, or as I'm going to shorten it from here on out to make it easier conversation, the wrap method. First things first, let's get the right mindset going. I selected a rat for a reason, and that's because of the mentality that a rat normally has when they're just trying to survive. And there's the 4 B's, and admittedly, I didn't put these in order because this was just scratch notes, me sitting here going, okay, let's just get this information down and as organized and neat as possible. So they're not listed as the 4 B's and then everything else, so be aware, it's not that planned, okay? So be cautious, be quick, be quiet, and be smart. You think about how a rat behaves, that's effectively them. Because they're always cautious about everything they do. They're very fast. They're quite smart. We know that they are problem solvers, and they're quite good at problem solving. I'm not so sure about how quiet most rats are. I mean, I'm told most rats are quiet, but we seem to have really loud ones, and the only reason the cats don't do anything is because they're just too lazy and they don't care. So, I don't know. I know that being quiet is apparently, typically, a rat thing. So I've included it. Now, another part of the mentality here is that everyone is a suspect. Now, keeping in mind that this is a gameplay situation, this applies a little bit differently in the sense that you have to remember, we don't know who the actors and actresses are behind the scenes. So some of these aliases and whatnot that they're using online, maybe to post vlogs and to be in forums, and that may be giving us accurate information. They may be intentionally giving us inaccurate information. They may be part of the creative process in multiple areas. So everyone is a suspect. Just take everything that you get with a grain of salt, okay? Now this kind of ties into, part 2 here of this, ties into the mindset. And this was told to me some years ago, and it was so thought-provoking. And admittedly, there's going to be some people here who are going to look at this and go, well, that's some toxic advice. And yeah, okay. I will say it is toxic advice, I suppose. But let's think about this in terms of the game. This works out really well. Because if you're going to use the rat method, you're going to need this. Now, if you're going to use the front door method that I mentioned earlier, don't do this. Okay? Here we go. There are no cheats in life, just more efficient and effective means of achieving one's goals. Okay. Did I use some interesting and sort of curious methods for getting the information that I have on this game? Yes! And it worked really, really well. With this mentality, it speeds up the process of trying to get the information. And so it runs it runs much more quickly than if you use the front door method, which is one of the reasons why I don't recommend this mentality for those who are just wanting more cruisy, but still investigative interaction with the gameplay. So this is much more aggressive, this is much more fast-paced. And what will happen is, when you have this mentality, certain bits of logic will come into play. And one of those bits of logic is that investigators talk to each other and share knowledge. Now, this is just real-world stuff here, all right? We know that. And when it's a really big case, a real-life case, yeah, they're going to be sharing information because they want to get it solved. In the case of a game, you translate investigators as investigator players. So other players who have looked at this and gone, hey, here's my opinion, look for that. Which takes us to page 2 of this information. What you're going to want to do once you've found these other players is review the other player investigators' information. There's going to be discords and forums, blogs, vlogs, fan art. I mean, a picture says 1,000 words, but how many more words does an image that someone has actually gone to the effort of creating themselves say then at that point about their opinion and what they found that was so inspirational that they decided to draw something? And that's impressive to me, and it's very important. So, though I didn't put it here, fan art, something to make note of. Also, when you're making your notes on this stuff, it can be handwritten, it can be typed, it can be like screenshots, photos, videos, it can be recordings, just audio recordings that you make yourself. Whatever you do, get as much information as you can down, noted, stored away, saved. You can organize it all later, and you need to do it as quickly as possible. Remember back when we were talking about, the features of a rat, you got to be quick. Yeah, well, that ties in here. You got to be fast, because there may be a time limit on some of that information being made available. We don't know that these vlogs and forums and discords aren't maybe filled with actors and actresses who have been told, okay, the authors want this information made available for this amount of time, and that's it. And that's all you get for that. So, honestly, just get it in as quickly as possible, because it might get removed. You never know. In my next video, because this has gotten long enough, it's about as long as the last video, in my next video I will cover steps 4 through 6. So I'll see you next time.